Welcome to Palace Insider. Let's dive into a royal bombshell that's shaking the very walls of Buckingham Palace. On February 3rd, 2026, a quiet two-paragraph statement from the palace hit Britain like a thunderclap. Prince William was named the sole beneficiary of one of the monarchy's most secretive estates. Older than Balmoral, Windsor, or even Sandringham. For years, Queen Elizabeth II had guarded it in silence, until Camilla and her son Tom discovered what had been kept from them. The rage inside those gilded halls was explosive. Staff whispered about hidden covenants, broken trusts, and Camilla's icy stare as William signed away everything she dreamed of. This wasn't just inheritance, it was the Queen's final master move. The Cedar Estate, a mystery buried deep in royal history. To uncover it, we must go back to 1944, when King George VI made a quiet, wartime purchase in the shadowy Chiltern Hills. The place was known only as the Sea Estate, and from day one, it was built to vanish. No registry, no press release, not even a whisper in official records. For over 80 years, it survived as a royal ghost story, hidden behind velvet curtains and guarded by silence itself. But the question that haunts everyone now is simple. Why keep an entire estate secret for 8 decades? What was so powerful inside that it had to stay buried? The truth dropped on February 3rd, 2026, through confidential notes sent to the Royal Correspondent Guild, and it stunned even veteran royal historians. Inside the Cedar Estate lies a private chapel with a secret memorial vault, 186 oak chests stuffed with wartime letters and royal communications, 72 unseen portraits, including rare paintings of King George VI and Princess Margaret, and 14 sealed tapes of Queen Elizabeth II speaking privately with Churchill, Mandela, Reagan, and de Gaulle. One archivist summed it up perfectly. This wasn't a museum of history. It was the raw, unfiltered architecture of royal memory, a living portrait of the monarchy's hidden soul. Here's what makes it even more explosive. Between 2017 and 2021, Prince William secretly spent weekends at the Cedar Estate. Not as a guest, but as a guardian. He strolled through the cedar groves with the Queen, handled wartime letters, cataloged naval records, and even fixed humidity systems in the archive vaults himself. This wasn't about duty. It was passion, conviction, and loyalty on full display. Queen Elizabeth saw it too. In her own handwriting within the Covenant Trust, she wrote, "He will inherit more than the crown. He will inherit the silence that preserved it." Those weren't casual words. They were a royal verdict. The Covenant Trust wasn't just paperwork. It was a secret legal weapon. The Cedar Estate wasn't part of the Crown or the Duchy of Cornwall. It stood alone, protected by a private mechanism built to outlast every challenge. Formed in 2020 under Charter Seal 0142 and signed by the Queen's own solicitor, a constitutional advisor, and a Royal Archives notary, the Covenant Trust was a masterpiece of secrecy. It carried a delayed trigger, only to activate after 2 monumental moments: the Queen's state funeral and Prince William's public confirmation as heir to institutional duty. Both moments have now passed, and the bomb has gone off. The official statement spelled it out clearly. Under the sealed Covenant Trust executed by Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in 2020, the property known as the Cedar Estate shall pass in full and exclusive guardianship to His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, effective immediately. Simple words, world-shaking impact. But this is where inheritance turned into a royal showdown. Palace sources say Queen Camilla and her son Tom Parker Bowles had quietly plotted for years to claim influence over the Cedar Estate. Starting in 2024, Camilla pushed her grand plan, a Windsor Cultural Legacy Center, complete with elite food retreats, literary salons, and private royal history tours through those ancient cedar groves. On paper, Camilla's idea looked elegant, but behind the polished words hid something far less noble. Tom Parker Bowles didn't see royal heritage when he looked at the Cedar Estate. He saw pure profit. Private palace memos show he had mapped out a grand plan: a Michelin star restaurant inside the old hunting lodge, an artisanal brand named Royal Wild selling cedar-aged cheese, estate honey, and Highland wines, plus elite side events for hand-picked VIPs, a business empire wrapped in royal charm. Then came October 18th, 2025, a leak that blew the cover off it all. Tom's legal team had been quietly exploring how to reclassify parts of the estate under public heritage law, claiming its wartime roots deserved cultural protection. That move could have cut into William's exclusive claim, turning royal legacy into corporate real estate. By November, Camilla hosted a hush-hush reception near Henley-on-Thames with heritage donors and critics. Officially, it was about rural sustainability, but one guest later called it a trial run for shared royal control. And yes, William found out. William didn't play along. He refused Camilla's invitations with calm precision, holding tight to the Queen's true vision. 3 weeks later, he moved first, activating the Covenant Trust from Northacre Hall. And while Camilla was still focused on the Cedar Estate, another quiet storm was brewing. On January 31st, 2026, the land registry quietly changed again, this time transferring Northacre Hall, a massive 1,200-acre estate stretching across Wiltshire's ancient hedgerows and Berkshire's green hills. Once a discreet royal getaway, it had hosted secret diplomacy and family hunts under Queen Elizabeth II. But beyond its history, it held real power. Steady income, old-world prestige, and valuable rights tied to an 800-year legacy. The shock. Timing. Papers dated September 8, 2022, just before the Queen's death, showed she had reclassified Northacre Hall from a shared crown property to her personal sovereign holding. That move let her gift it privately, outside royal bureaucracy. In Appendix R3, she wrote, "Let Northacre remain with the child who bears the burden of our future. Let it be not merely shelter, but sanctuary." The choice bypassed both King Charles and Princess Anne entirely. The shock inside royal circles spread quietly, like a stone sinking into midnight waters. Palace archivists revealed it was the first private royal transfer since Queen Victoria's Highland deal of 1872 pulled off in total secrecy. Only 2 people knew, Lady Sarah Chatsworth and the Queen's trusted legal mind, Sir Alistair Denholm. The sealed letter that set it all in motion carried just 3 haunting words: "For the reign after me." But Camilla wasn't standing still. By 2023, leaked aid notes showed she and Tom were lobbying hard to fold Northacre Hall into their next big project, a royal culinary heritage venture. It sounded wholesome, but behind it were investors from the UAE and a Paris-based luxury firm eyeing royal real estate. Their pitch? A 5-star boutique hotel, a heritage cooking school, and a full rebranding of Northacre Hall as a Windsor-style luxury retreat. One financial study from July 2025 estimated the estate's licensing potential at £48 million over 10 years. As one courtier put it, Camilla thought she'd quietly bought influence, but the Queen outplayed her from beyond the grave. What came next was a sleek campaign of whispers led by her fixer, Maurice Lull, a retired PR shark who filled the press with sly claims that the monarchy had overinvested in heritage. In one last desperate move, Tom allegedly tried to file a lease inquiry for Northacre's southern orchard, claiming it was unused farmland. The Duchy of Cornwall's legal team shut him down instantly, citing inheritance protection laws. Palace insiders said Camilla's response wasn't mere anger. It was icy fury, the kind that comes from being outsmarted by a woman no longer alive. Then came a twist no one saw coming. Clarence Hill Estate, the Queen's most intimate secret. In mid-January 2026, Princess Anne began a forensic review of her mother's private letters in Windsor's Oak Room. Hidden inside a leather folio marked W. William George was a folded codicil, unlike anything the royals had ever seen. Clarence Hill Estate lay buried deep in the Chiltern Hills, 4 miles from any public road. A hidden sanctuary purchased in 1947 by King George VI as an off-the-record reserve for direct heirs, untouched by Parliament or politics. And in the Queen's own handwriting came her final command: "I entrust Clarence Hill to my grandson William, in full title and spirit, free of encumbrance, free of shadow. Let it remain outside the Crown Estate, immune to politics, immune to scandal. This land is a covenant, not a commodity." The Queen's final wish was clear. Clarence Hill's purpose was to guard the moral line of succession. Her words, immune to scandal, weren't poetic. They were protective. Sources say she'd grown deeply wary of the chaos surrounding Prince Andrew's controversies and Prince Harry's media storms. For Elizabeth, her legacy needed insulation, a sacred refuge untouched by gossip or greed. Clarence Hill was meant to be William and Catherine's sanctuary, a moral compass for the monarchy's next era. But when Camilla learned of the transfer on January 20th, fury followed fast. She called an emergency meeting at Highgrove with Tom, who was already reeling from a publishing contract collapse tied to misusing the royal crest on his food brand. To Camilla, Clarence Hill wasn't sacred. It was ripe for reinvention. Leaked emails showed her writing, "Imagine the launch, from the Queen's Garden to yours." By January 23rd, she'd filed paperwork for a new company, Hill & Crown Limited, with Tom as executive director. Their plan? To turn Clarence Hill into a regenerative luxury brand. Part hotel, part farm, all profit. She even dubbed Tom the Prince of Green Britain. But by then, it was too late. The codicil had already been sealed in the royal archives. By the time Camilla's plan took shape, it was already over. The legal transfer to the Duchy of Cornwall Trust had been finalized weeks earlier. Hill & Crown Limited arrived 3 weeks too late. Then came January 28th, the leak that blew the lid off everything. An anonymous whistleblower, rumored to be a former aide, sent the company's full business deck to the Lord Chancellor, accusing them of commercial trespass on a sealed royal legacy. The leaked files exposed it all. Rebranding schemes, inflated luxury valuations, and even mock-ups of Clarence Hill plastered with sleek corporate logos. The public backlash was fierce and immediate. Sources say William confronted Camilla at Windsor during what was meant to be a quiet lunch celebrating Catherine's recovery. The exchange was short, but devastating. William's reported words cut deep. "Clarence Hill does not exist to be bottled, branded, or sold. It is the last sanctuary of my grandmother's soul, and I will protect it as I protect my wife and children." Within 48 hours, Hill & Crown Limited was dissolved. Tom pulled out of 3 public events, citing stress-related fatigue. And while no statements were released, one thing was clear. Inside the palace, the Queen's final wish had spoken louder than any crown. Elizabeth always knew who would hold the crown, not just wear it. Those words echoed through the palace as the next storm gathered. Just when the dust from Clarence Hill had begun to settle, a new battlefield rose: Greystone Downs. This 400-acre protected estate, blanketed in ancient woodland, held a Tudor hunting lodge from 1578 and a private chapel glittering with 17th-century relics. For more than 40 years, the Queen had guarded Greystone Downs as both her retreat and a moral compass for the monarchy. Leaving it to William wasn't just practical, it was symbolic. He wasn't inheriting wealth. He was inheriting restraint, stewardship, and dignity. But Camilla and Tom had other plans. Valued at £80 million, Greystone was their ultimate prize. Recovered documents from a former aide exposed their blueprint. A line of £5,000 a night eco-lodges, elite farm-to-table dining hosted by Tom himself, and a private members' royal culinary circle targeting high-end clients from the UAE and East Asia. Their vision? A Windsor sanctuary. A luxury empire built not on legacy, but on borrowed royal soul. Behind the scenes, Camilla's legal fixer, Piers Mallory, was digging for loopholes, hunting for any clause that could give her even a shred of control over Greystone Downs. She wanted shared custodianship, heritage collaboration, anything to loosen William's iron grip. Meanwhile, Tom had quietly set up a Luxembourg-based company called Stag Crown Hospitality Limited, just 3 weeks before the Queen's will went public. Recovered palace documents revealed their plans, turning the estate's private chapel into a mindfulness retreat and transforming the old royal stables, once home to the Queen's beloved ponies, into a luxury vineyard spa. But then, Princess Anne caught wind of it all. She intercepted a confidential email between Camilla's lawyer and a member of the House of Lords, and her response was chillingly calm. Anne told William, "She's not challenging the crown, she's challenging Mother's ethics." That single line set off a royal counterstrike. William called an emergency session with the Privy Purse, and within days, the sealed codicil was unsealed and entered into the royal archives on February 3, 2026. In the Queen's own handwriting, notarized in 2021, it banned any commercial conversion or rebranding of Greystone Downs, unless William personally approved it. The clause hit like a thunderclap. It was the Queen's final rebuke, proof she had seen the challenge coming years before it began. One palace footman later described the tense scene. Camilla opened the envelope stamped with the royal monogram, read it twice in silence, and finally muttered 4 unforgettable words. "Even in death, she leaves me caged." William didn't answer with speeches. He answered with presence. On February 5th, he made an unannounced trip to Greystone Downs with Princess Catherine and their 3 children. At sunset, cameras caught them walking beside the frozen lake. No press, no words, just a family quietly keeping the Queen's promise alive. But just as Camilla thought the storm had peaked, Green Heath Estate delivered her most crushing defeat yet. Worth £37 million, Green Heath lay southeast of Forest Lodge, a sprawling 500-acre stretch of untouched woodland bordering an ancient Roman road. Protected under a royal conservation deed, it had been seen by insiders as a potential hub for elite retreats, confidential diplomacy, and top-tier rehabilitation programs under royal patronage. Camilla had her eyes on Green Heath from the start. Planning began almost the moment Queen Elizabeth passed. But she'd misread the sealed section of the Queen's will, thinking it referred to a ceremonial plot or forgotten hunting grounds. She couldn't have been more wrong. Green Heath came tied to a £37 million private trust, built quietly over decades through secret transfers personally approved by the Queen herself. A hidden fund invisible to anyone not meant to find it. When Tom Parker Bowles learned the truth, he was furious. He'd already pitched a grand vision, a luxury culinary wellness center bankrolled by Dubai investors and a French spa group. Camilla had even promised royal endorsement through her regency influence, with lavish dinners, hand-picked wines, and foreign dignitaries on the guest list. Then came the shock. On January 30th, 2026, Princess Anne, acting for the Crown Trust Authority, sealed the transfer retroactive to December 28, 2025. William now owned Green Heath and the trust. That same night, Clarence House received one last surprise. A recording of the Queen's voice, declaring Green Heath a sanctuary for environmental education and child rehabilitation. Under William and Catherine's direct patronage, Camilla called a late-night crisis meeting at Romley House with Tom and 2 estate lawyers. Palace insiders say the talk turned dark fast. Camilla was ready to challenge the Queen's mental clarity during the Green Heath transfer, claiming William and Catherine had manipulated an aging monarch. It was a shocking posthumous attack, aimed not just at William, but at Elizabeth's legacy itself. Within 48 hours, King Charles, despite his frailty, sent a private warning. Any move to question the Queen's will would be treated as sedition against the Crown's memory. When that letter leaked to the Times on February 2nd, the backlash was explosive. Scholars, royalists, and the public united in outrage. That same day, Princess Catherine appeared quietly at a Windsor children's hospice, radiating calm dignity, a silent rebuke to Camilla's plotting. Then, at 9:46 a.m., February 3rd, William arrived alone at the Green Heath gates. No press, no pomp, just resolve. In the winter chill, he signed the Green Heath Royal Future Trust, closing the estate forever to commercial use. William's signature at Green Heath didn't just finalize a transfer, it codified the Queen's vision into law, anchoring her lifelong commitment to education and the environment. As the ink dried, a Rolls-Royce appeared at the edge of the estate. Camilla stepped out, dark glasses on, lips pressed, a black folder clutched to her chest. She didn't speak, she didn't move closer. She simply stood there, watching a future she could neither control nor undo. Tom never showed. By nightfall, Camilla had canceled a royal culinary gala planned for February 4th. Her PR team issued a single sterile line. Her Majesty Queen Camilla regrets recent developments and supports the King's reaffirmation of the late Queen's legacy. Then came Oak Ridge Estate, the Queen's final word. On the morning of February 3rd, a sealed envelope marked with Elizabeth II's cipher was delivered to Prime Minister Harriet Shawcross, confirming Oak Ridge's transfer to William. Unlike Balmoral or Sandringham, it wasn't bound by Crown rules. A £118 million sanctuary of forests, ruins, and history that carried something far richer than value: the Queen's last declaration of trust. Oak Ridge had always been Queen Elizabeth's personal refuge, a quiet haven where royal storms passed and family wounds healed. It was where young William spent his summers, learning what it meant to belong to something greater than himself. In the estate's library, tucked beside a sprig of pressed lavender, the Queen's final journal entry read simply, "Stewardship is the truest form of inheritance." Even as the transfer papers were sealed, whispers swirled. Camilla and Tom were considering a last-ditch legal appeal, claiming Oak Ridge had used public funds and could be reclassified. But William was ready. He ordered a full audit stretching back to 1953, knowing his grandmother had already seen this fight coming. Buried in the private will was a final safeguard, the anticipatory obstruction clause, nullifying any challenge from anyone outside the Windsor bloodline or married into it after 2010. When it was read aloud, silence filled the room. Camilla left without a word. Tom cursed under his breath. Princess Anne turned to Charles and murmured, "I always knew this day would come." That evening, William, Catherine, and their children walked Oak Ridge together. Standing on the old watchtower, George asked softly, "Will this be ours forever?" William replied, "As long as we protect it." Inside the will was one final message from Queen Elizabeth II, a passage that erased every scheme, every challenge, every whisper of greed. If ever this estate is challenged, let it be known. Oak Ridge belongs not to power, but to patience. Let the one who bears the weight of the crown's future, not the burden of entitlement, carry it forward. Elizabeth R. Those words made everything else meaningless. What Elizabeth truly built wasn't just inheritance, it was a fortress of principle. Each estate, each clause, each trust was a defense, crafted to shield the monarchy from ambition, ego, and profit. She had foreseen it all: the lobbying, the lawsuits, the PR manipulation, and she left no crack unsealed. Ask yourself why she did it. The answer isn't flattering to those within her circle. She saw what some around her had become: figures chasing brands, money, and spotlight rather than service. Elizabeth chose William not for his title, but for his restraint. The man who quietly restored old letters, fixed archive vaults, and walked beside her through the cedar groves. That, to her, was true royalty. Stewardship, not self-promotion. Prince William's response to every challenge against the Queen's wishes has been calm, precise, and deeply loyal to the woman who chose him. No outbursts, no interviews, no public fights, only quiet resolve. He let the legal walls his grandmother built speak for him, and they spoke louder than any statement ever could. As dawn broke over Windsor Great Park on February 3, 2026, pale sunlight washed over frost-kissed hedgerows, while William walked the paths of an estate now fully his own. George ran beside him, full of curiosity. Charlotte clutched a journal, taking in every detail. William answered gently, like a man who knows exactly what it means to protect something sacred. Camilla's ambitions didn't just fail, they were dismantled, clause by clause, by Elizabeth's unmatched foresight. Every scheme, every whisper of profit, every hidden contract, all neutralized years before they began. The Queen's legacy stands, sealed in ink, trust, and unbreakable intention. In the end, William didn't just inherit land, he inherited purpose. Elizabeth's true gift wasn't wealth, but wisdom, stewardship, integrity, and loyalty to what matters most. If you've been following this royal saga, let us know what you think. Drop a like, comment, share, and subscribe for more royal deep dives. See you in the next video, where power, history, and legacy meet once again.